Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I am back, and this is something I've been waiting a long time to do. Frankly, right when I didn't play it, but I watched people, and I seen all of the cutscenes and all the gameplay of God of War Ragnarok. I knew I wanted to do this right here. Initially was gonna do what if Izuku was Heimdall's reincarnation or something of that sort, but I decided to let's just bury it down or simplify it to what if Deku had a Foresight quirk. But this Foresight quirk is gonna be far different than the ones that we've seen or the one we have seen. So I'm not gonna waste that much more of your time, and we're gonna get right into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya is born in a world full of quirks, or superpowers. Superpowers that change the one's body a far, far margin. These quirks are seen as a testament of the entirety of society. Without a good quirk, you really don't do much in life. And there's a good chance that you will never get a good quirk. Children may hope that they get a special quirk that would allow them to be heroes. A special quirk that would allow them to be, different. But that's not always the case. Quirks in this world sometimes are detrimental. Sometimes are horrible. But at the same time, sometimes they build someone's character. Someone that is fiery. Someone that is angry all the time may have an aggressive quirk. Some people may vary on their quirks and their personalities. And Izuku Midoriya would find out relatively quickly, and his personality would shape relatively fast when he learns of his quirk. His quirk would be known as Foresight, something that they would dignify similar to a pro hero, but not knowing that it's not necessarily not necessarily even similar to that said pro hero by the name of Sir Night-Eye. And during the doctor's visit, Izuku doesn't know much more than just that. He doesn't know much more than just that it's similar to Sir Night-Eye's. But when he begins to actually use this quirk, his eyes begin to change a shade of magenta or purple. When he begins to look at his mother, his eyes fully change and actually stay that way the entire time and don't change at all. Those green eyes that he originally had no longer exist. He stares at his mother, and it's like he can see every pathway she is likely to choose. It's as if he can see every choice that she's going to do. She begins to work on dinner, looking around, making things. And it's odd, while she does this, Izuku can accurately predict exactly what she's going to make, what pattern she's going to make it, and then eventually what the end result will be. And that's, the food catching on fire. Izuku brings that up and says something about that she shouldn't add this or that, or she should pay attention to this to prevent a fire from happening on the food. And Inko thinks that he's just overreacting, or basically doesn't know what he's talking about, at least initially, until the food erupts in flames. And she kind of misstepped an ingredient and kind of added something without realizing it, catching the food on fire, which is a wild thing to happen, especially your son predicting it. With that said, she begins to kind of run her life through Izuku. I mean, she's not basically relying on him, but she is definitely thinking about, really hard decisions and asking him for advice. Izuku, as he grows up, becomes extremely popular in school, out of school, etc., etc. His eyes seem to be basically a cool thing for the girls, and for the guys think that his quirk is sick. I mean, someone that could basically see the future, that's awesome. In which that's not necessarily what the Foresight quirk is, but to them, that's what they believe it to be. Izuku continues to basically work on this quirk, and his intelligence would skyrocket. It's as if this quirk alone has enhanced his intelligence tenfold. So at the age of like 6 or 7, he's reading, writing, and all of that at an 11th grade level, or I guess it would be what, year 11 level, because they're in Japan. But he's extremely intelligent, and he'll only get more intelligent as he goes along, as if he absorbs knowledge in a matter of seconds, and he can basically foresee all the answers and understand equations in a matter of seconds, which is something that makes school and stuff like that extremely easy for him, something that he won't even try on in the future. Izuku feels cocky in a way, feels self-absorbed now, to the point that he feels that he's better than everyone. I mean, he kind of is, right? Izuku feels that he's just levels above his classmates and that there is no touching him. There's really nothing that they can do. Izuku would quickly pass through all of these learning exams and so on and so forth, just cruising on through school. But his quote-unquote friend, which in this, they're really not friends, Katsuki Bakugo, doesn't really like Izuku. Frankly, he thinks he's too high for his bridges, and he thinks that he's better than everyone else. But Bakugo, in a way, thinks the same thing. Bakugo thinks that he's better than everyone else, so what is he to say against Izuku for believing the same thing? Izuku would get into some scuffles with Bakugo, but at the age of 12 years old, and basically heading into middle school, he would have the most serious scuffle he's ever had with him. It would lead to them actually fighting with their quirks. Bakugo would get so pissed off that he felt that Izuku was taking all the attention and also taking all his quote-unquote friends or entourage, and Izuku would tell him that he doesn't care about no entourage. He doesn't care about any of these people, frankly, so he can have them back. He doesn't need people that are useless, and if Bakugo needs people that are useless, well, that says a lot about him. After he says this, though, Bakugo becomes storming at him, shooting explosions. But Izuku would immediately dodge, and as he slips through all the explosions, not a touch on him, he lands a punch to his stomach that sends shockwaves through Bakugo's body, making him cough up blood a little bit. Izuku would grab Bakugo by the shirt and drag him off and throw him on the chair right outside the nurse's office. He would squat down slightly and shake his head, telling Bakugo that he'll never be able to touch him because he sees everything. He walks away as Bakugo is still kind of whimpering and hunched over, extremely hurt to an extent. Izuku thinks to himself that as long as he has these eyes, as long as he can foresee everything, he doesn't need anything. He doesn't need help. He doesn't need he doesn't need training. This will be just a breeze, a straight breeze. So the next 3 years, frankly, he doesn't do much training. Yeah, he utilizes his quirk, so to an extent that would be kind of quote-unquote training, but he doesn't use his quirk to the most extent that he possibly can. He doesn't train his own body to the extent that he possibly can. He's already fit, and he feels like, oh, it doesn't really matter because no one can hit me anyways. And on top of that, he already can see all of these martial arts on YouTube and stuff like that on screens, so what's the point? I mean, he can learn all of it at a touch of his finger. And that's exactly what he does. But the difference is, there is no mastery of something you've never performed. Yeah, he might be able to utilize it somewhat, but he won't be able to utilize it to the extent that he believes he will be able to. With that said, though, the end of middle school would quickly approach, and the teacher would begin to tell everyone that he was going to give everyone a little bit of work applications to basically see where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. But he knows all of them want to go the hero route. The hero route is something that Izuku has made apparent. That's all he's going to do. And he doesn't want to do it necessarily because he wants to quote unquote save people, but he just wants to show everyone that he could be greater than, well, All Might. He wants to be the best. That's all he wants to do. He wants to be better than All Might himself. Izuku wants to basically be the new #1 hero, but do it his own way. Of course, he takes inspiration from All Might, and he wants to save people too, but at the same time, this quirk he has can do far more than what All Might could do. That's what he truly believes. Izuku will listen to the teacher as he speaks, but would kind of ignore him at the same time here and there. The teacher would eventually say that Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo are trying for UA, but Bakugo makes a remark saying that Izuku won't even get in because he's heard something. In the practical exam of the UA entrance exam, they gotta fight robots. Izuku is nowhere near strong enough to break through robots or pure steel. You'll need something like Bakugo's quirk, an explosion quirk, something that could truly hit hard. Izuku looks at Bakugo with a weird glance and says that he'll do what he needs to do to figure it out, and that he'll still end up being #1 in that exam. Bakugo stands up and slams his hand on Izuku's desk, asking him if that's a challenge. Izuku says that a challenge is between two people of equals, two people that it would actually matter, that the other person would have a chance. But Bakugo has no chance, so this is no challenge. Immediately, Bakugo is about to punch him in the face, but the teacher tells him to sit down and stop, or he'll get in serious trouble. Bakugo sits down, and eventually the day would proceed on and finish up. Izuku would think about what Bakugo said. Of course, it would be extremely difficult to destroy robots, especially in the state he is currently. I mean, he has nothing that really makes him extremely strong. Is he able to counterpunch and basically easily track down anybody and destroy and basically knock out anybody he wants? Because frankly, he sees everything coming in a matter of seconds. Of course. But at the same time, Izuku knows that it's more to hero work and more to fighting than just seeing everything that's ahead. He needs strength, power. He needs to be able to take a punch if he cannot dodge a punch. After this realization, Izuku begins training. Yeah, finally. He begins actually working out and putting himself through pain. It's odd for him. When he begins to train, he schedules out a perfect regimen, something that is ideal for himself and actually perfectly executable, in which he's able to basically retain as much muscle as possible, but at the same time retain as much speed as well. Izuku would continue training, and eventually he would hear about something on the news. A couple days after his training, would continue or begin, Izuku would see on the news that the sludge villain actually was out and about, and he was captured by All Might himself, but that was after he actually captured somebody. But luckily All Might was there to save him, and it was basically a perfect coincidence and was able to handle what happened. Izuku continues to watch on the screen, and his mom comes in saying that happened a couple days ago. It's just old news. They like repeating themselves a lot. Izuku continues to watch, but he sees something. He looks closely. That person in the sludge villain, he doesn't know him, but he does know the person that's charging into battle to help the person that is in the sludge villain. That's Bakugo. He's shocked. Bakugo has a heart? Why would he do that? I mean, I feel like he's the type of guy to just let the guy die. Whatever. Izuku wouldn't think much about it, but it's definitely something that needs to be kept in mind. Izuku would continue training for the next 10 months. Frankly, not really needing to study or anything like that. He would memorize and basically condense everything in a matter of, a day, easily. So Izuku would have no problem with that with the written exam, and would easily pass that with flying colors. When he heads over to the UA entrance exam after the training, the 10-month period, Izuku would easily, like I said, finish the written portion of the exam. The written portion is easy breezy, and frankly, nothing to really think about. Izuku would then wait, though, and he would reveal something that he's been actually using recently and been using for the last maybe month or so. and that's some weaponry. Of course, he gets the weaponry cleared by UA and basically the people that run it. But yeah, he begins to use some weaponry. He feels that the use of weaponry, the extra strength that he put on, and obviously some tampering himself that he did to the weapons, would allow him to absolutely destroy everything in front of him. And when they would line up at the gates, Izuku could already see the perfect pathway for himself, seeing that he should take certain directions to destroy certain robots. When he begins to look, he begins to wait, and when the gates swing open, he takes off. Everyone believes that he's just some normal dude with a certain powers in his eyes, but his speed is pretty insane. It seems that he's increased his just physical attributes by a lot and over that last 10 months and got into peak condition. And now he begins to slice and dice all the robots he sees using different weaponry he currently has, slicing through them with a giant smirk on his face. Just as he thought, just as he foresaw, he knew that there were some hurdles to be handled in this regard, but he handled them swiftly and easily. Frankly, with no sweat at all. Izuku handled these little issues that he may or may not have ran into in a matter of just, 10 months. 10 months for him to add a little bit more to his repertoire. He realized something. Maybe, just maybe, he did have some things to learn. Maybe he could add and excel even more. Maybe he could be even better than what he already was. Izuku continues to destroy and obliterate every robot he sees with his blade. As he does so, he does feel an odd sensation throughout his hands and onto the blade, as if the blade itself is getting stronger. He's not so sure. Maybe this is something that he'll have to look into later, but it's not something he knows anything about. But still, he continues to obliterate what he can and do, and eventually he would get to the point where he'd feel comfortable, very comfortable, about where he was. Izuku would then head off and begin to leave kind of the area, at least to an extent, but eventually he would hear the cries of somebody near him. A girl is stuck under rubble, and just as she is stuck under this rubble, well, another robot is appearing. This robot is the 0 pointer, and he remembers back to Present Mike, telling them to avoid it. Of course, Izuku thinks that this is no empty threat. The 0 pointer must be really serious if they're being told to avoid it entirely, in which, of course, it is. It is no empty threat. So he decides, you know what? Using the power he has and the strength he has, he foresees something in his own future, looking ahead, and he's looking ahead to see that he'll be able to save this young girl, or to save this girl by the name of Ochako Uraraka, in which he does just that, breaking all of the rubble near her, grabbing her and running off with her, making sure that she's good to go. But he doesn't say another word to her, not saying a name, not saying anything. He doesn't necessarily care about about anything or care about her. I mean, he doesn't necessarily want to really worry about, if she's okay or not. Frankly, when you all think about it, Izuku most likely knew that this would also give him extra points. Plus, it doesn't look too good to see a girl on the entrance exam, die. So he decided to save her. Maybe he'll get a taste of being a hero early this time around. Of course, he would, they would try to talk to him. Ochako would try, and also others as well, but he wouldn't say a word. They've heard, or many of the teachers have heard rumors of what his quirk is, and seeing it on full display definitely confirms it. But Izuku doesn't want to talk to anybody. He heads home, and he waits for the letter to arrive. Izuku is still in a stage of thinking that he's definitely better than everyone else, and frankly, when the UA entrance exam, the UA entrance exam letter would arrive and his acceptance would arrive to UA, it would just confirm even more that he was truly the best. He would learn that he got number 1 in the exam, and it was by a long shot. It was by far. And the reason for that is actually saving that girl, in which Izuku is pretty shocked to hear, but at the same time, he kind of predicted this in a way. He thought that it would definitely help his score, but he didn't think it would help that much. But to win by a long shot because of that definitely gives him an interesting perspective. Izuku, of course, would think more about this in the future, but something needs to actually give. He needs to actually, have a good time, celebrate a little bit, in which him, his mother, and many others do in the wake of Izuku getting into UA as the number 1 student. And while watching the little entrance exam acceptance, he actually realizes that he's listening to All Might right now. He turns around because he wasn't even looking at the hologram to see All Might himself. Izuku is pretty interested at the fact that All Might is actually going to be a teacher at UA, wondering if he'll actually be able to teach much. Frankly, All Might seems to be a one-sided hero in Izuku's opinion. Raw power does get you so far, but it seems that All Might is maybe a little bit more than just brawn, in which Izuku is definitely interested to see. After some time would pass, Izuku would finally have the first day at UA. UA High School is something that he's been waiting for a long time. And to see where this goes, well, he's excited. In a way, has some high expectations for this school. So when he arrives to see a bunch of hooligans and frankly Bakugo arguing with some blue-haired kid, he kind of gets annoyed. Everyone else seems relatively tame, but a couple of them he questions how they even got in. That Mineta kid, how the hell did he get in? That other girl over there, she's only invisible. How did she get in? He's not so sure. Frankly, he feels like a lot of these people could get replaced, and replaced relatively quickly. He even sits there and thinks, how the hell did the invisible girl and the guy with weird hair get in and destroy robots? That makes no sense. Maybe they got recommended or something else, but still, that's kind of ridiculous. And Izuku begins to think that there are far better options than these people. There's a lot of people here that he feels probably don't even deserve to be at UA at all. They should have gone to a low tier high school or something of that manner. But still, whatever. Izuku sits down and waits, and as he does, someone actually approaches him. It's Ochako Uraraka, and this in a way kind of annoys him. He doesn't want no thanks, he doesn't want any of that, he doesn't want to speak to really her at all, and she basically stutters over her words a little bit and it says that she's so grateful, so on and so forth, in which Izuku waves her off, saying that he just did what needed to be done and something that needs to be done as a hero. That's it. He doesn't need really congratulations, he doesn't need a thanks, he doesn't need any of that. Now he recommends that she gets better with her quirk so an incident doesn't happen again on the battlefield. Izuku is stern with his words, and she does take him to heart, but does feel kind of sad that he's not happy at all. But of course, if they knew Izuku before, this is how he always is, in which Bakugo kind of comments about it, not directly to her, but in general, saying that he's always been like that, and he's so annoying for it, thinking he's cool and thinking he's better than everyone else. Ochako is shocked to hear that they have some relation, in which she does slightly ask about it, in which Izuku says that this is the last thing he'll answer, and that they went to school together. That is it. They're not friends. They're not anything other than just classmates. Of course, Bakugo says that is his line, that of course they're not friends. He'd never be friends with a loser like him, but Izuku ignores him once again as Aizawa, their teacher, walks in. Aizawa would tell all of them to shut up and sit down, that this is no time for chatter, no time for talking. He then tells them that he's going to be testing something out. He wants to test how strong all of their quirks truly are, how strong they truly are. So they'll do basically a bit of a quirk assessment test.
Some of them ask about orientation, but Aizawa tells them that he can do whatever he wants. He will do whatever he wants. So that's exactly what Aizawa is going to do. Host a Quirk assessment test, and, well, they'll find out a bit of a caveat very soon. When they all head out, get on their PE uniforms, and get ready for the Quirk assessment, Aizawa tells them all that just to be ready for the unexpected. As he says this, he tells the number 1 student in the UA entrance exam to step up and throw a ball as far as possible, in which he calls up Izuku Midoriya. Izuku cockily walks up, and Aizawa can already tell that he can't stand the kid, being already annoyed at his demeanor and already annoyed at the way he acts. Nonetheless, though, Izuku shrugs it off. He then throws the ball, and he throws it relatively far. He's been gaining strength relatively quickly, but he's not a raw power type of person. Izuku even basically says this and says that he might be peak human shape, but at the end of the day, his quirk isn't to have superpowers. He doesn't have some super strength or overall anything to do with that, so it's relatively mediocre in the eyes of most. Izuku would walk off as Aizawa would smirk, as it seems that Izuku does know his limitations to a certain extent, but humbling needs to happen. Humbling is something that Izuku needs to go through. Aizawa is not sure how that would occur, because expelling him most likely will just send him off to another school, and Izuku's pride would definitely carry him off to a competitor, so he doesn't want to do it in that way. There has to be another way. Nonetheless, everyone else falls in line, beginning to throw the ball. Bakugo, getting a higher score than Izuku, obviously sets him off on a bit of a tangent. But like Izuku said before, that doesn't necessarily matter in terms of raw strength, because that's not Izuku's quirk. Everything goes on pretty similar, and Izuku doesn't even get that high. He gets around middle of the pack, but like I said, he is a lot stronger and faster than the people that are just kind of normal and don't have these special quirks for these special physical exams. Izuku kind of just goes with the flow. If it was a fight, it would be a lot different. And there's a lot of circumstances that it would be a lot different for Izuku, especially in terms of fighting and IQ. Izuku is a bit of a thinker. Well, definitely a thinker. He'll think so far ahead of you to the point that it feels, well, unfair. But still, Izuku knows what the quirk assessment is, and he continues on with it. People like Bakugo and Todoroki, well, they do pretty darn well. And frankly, that's a pretty obvious thing that's going to happen. Bakugo and Todoroki do really well in the quirk assessment, including some other people as well, and they get at the top of the list. Izuku sitting around number 10. But still, pretty good for Izuku, and Bakugo himself is still kind of high and mighty on the fact that he got higher than Izuku. To the point that it leads to Izuku actually, well, talking smack. And of course he would. I mean, that's just kind of who he is and what he does. He begins to tell Bakugo that it sucks that he couldn't actually be number 1 in the entrance exam. On top of that, well, let's just say he's always been number 2 behind Izuku, or behind himself. Izuku slightly laughs, and Aizawa wants to see how Bakugo reacts, because obviously Bakugo has a problem with his temper, an extreme problem with his temper, so he sees Bakugo fly at Izuku, but Aizawa doesn't do a thing. He waits. He's heard about this kid, what he can do, and what he's capable of. Izuku stands still and doesn't do a thing. Bakugo stops in his tracks and asks Izuku what the hell he thinks he's doing. What if he actually exploded him on the face? Izuku points to Bakugo and shakes his head. It's as if you never learn. I don't see the future, Bakugo. Not at all. I just read the person, see what they're doing, what to expect, and in a way I can predict what's the most likely outcome. So, you're right. My quirk is very different and very odd, and maybe in raw power I can't keep up with you at all. But here's the difference. I can see everything you will do before you even do it. Bakugo is stunned by this, as if It's as if Izuku got into his head so badly that Bakugo knew he wasn't even going to strike Izuku. This is something that makes Aizawa himself smirk. This kid may be cocky, he may be arrogant, but he damn well knows what he's doing. Izuku is someone that is leagues and leagues above everyone around. Of course, Aizawa doesn't want to say this to boost his ego even more, but the kid is special, and he can tell. Very similar to Sir Night-Eye in the fact of the way he uses his quirk, and very similar to some pro heroes that are so technically sound, like himself, like Aizawa himself, and those who have really brawlish tendencies are just a thing of the past. The heroes that love to brawl, like All Might, people that love to just use their raw power, may be a thing of the past, especially with the introduction with Izuku. Izuku Midoriya can foresee it all. He'll see through you, and he'll make you regret every mistake. Every manner that you decide to walk, the path that you walk, well, he knows it, and he'll counter it. Izuku Midoriya may be a future top hero, a future star in the making, but he'll have to get through UA first, and he'll have to get through a lot of trials and tribulations before he's truly a contender for the #1 hero. So what happens, or what will happen next? Well, you're going to have to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had a Foresight Quirk. And if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And that's all I got to say. I appreciate all the support, and I'll try to get these videos out to you as soon as possible. And I hope you all have an amazing day. Later.